All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Vincent Donadio, Interactive Media Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory. If you follow us or interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, or our website, I'm the guy on the other side. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs today and in the future. This morning we have Joanne Hackos with us, and she's going to be presenting the last part of her series of Crossing the Chasm with DITA, Part 3, Now Grow. And she's going to tell you a little bit about what she does, and then she's going to get right into it. So go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, thanks, Vincent. I hope this is coming through clearly. And I think what I'm going to do is pick up the handset and use that. Okay, how's that for the sound?
That's very clear, thanks.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's see if I have the control on the slides. There we go. I think you've covered some of the things that Data Conversion Lab does. And so I'm going to cover a few things that Comtech does, my organization. And, just point out that we've been involved for the last 32 years with working with groups and developing better strategies for producing customer-effective information, including information development and documentation, as well as training organizations and translation and localization, and all sorts of publishing outputs and user studies, and focus on what makes information more valuable to companies. So that's the just the kinds of things that we do at Comtech. Is just a little bit of introduction. I also want to point out that between the two of us, Data Conversion Laboratories and Comtech, we work with many of your organizations and lots of organizations around the world in this really the move to increase the effectiveness of our information with customers, and also to affect the productivity of our own organizations. And those are the themes we're going to follow up on today. We've been having a lot of fun, I think, with this series. I know a lot of you have been present at the first and second sessions. And the theme that we've been working with is Geoffrey Moore's seminal study called Crossing the Chasm, where he really traced how products and product development moves from introduction into an innovator and early adopter market, and then a move to the early majority of customers, users who really are implementing these new ideas that have been developed earlier, for the first time. So we started with a part one where we looked at who were the innovators and early adopters of the DITA standard, and what did that mean? What challenges did they have to overcome, and what have they accomplished? What are the things that have been really meaningful in the work of the innovators and early adopters? In part two, we moved on to the early majority and the implementation process, and we're seeing a really very clear indication worldwide that DITA is being adopted by many more conservative organizations that have been kind of waiting on the sideline, waiting for the innovators and early adopters to really get things working very well. And that's what we see going on around the world today. In fact, I just came back from a week in China, and then just received a notice yesterday that one of the companies that I had met with almost 6 months ago in China is going to present at a Chinese conference about their success in the last 6 months of implementing DITA. So it's very, very exciting to see our early majority adopters looking at the effectiveness and the importance of DITA adoption, and the way, it implies changes in the way we work and the way we deliver content to customers. So in the last session, we took everyone through the step-by-step timeline of the implementation process, and I invite you to go back and look at those, that recording in those earlier, that earlier presentation. In this presentation, part 3, we're going to, in some ways, go back to the innovators and look at what they are adding to the picture. Both innovators and early adoption. So we're going to look at what's going on right now with the optimization of DITA into, for our organizations and the productivity issues, but especially for the customers. What is changing, what technologies are emerging, what techniques do we see, moving forward that is, where we're using structure-based authoring, topic-based authoring, XML automated production, single sourcing, and content reuse, using that to enable better information going out to our customers. We're also, in the second part, going to talk about the move to the enterprise, to the larger organization, that we're seeing not only among early adopters who, obviously because they're early adopters, have a head start and are now moving some of their learning out to the larger organization, but also some of the early majority users that represent enterprise expansion from, the source in technical communication where most of this started. So those are going to be our 2 themes today. So let's move into this information. Let's see. There we go. The 2 themes then, optimization and enterprise. The question that I'm asking is, how do we increase the quality and the flexibility and the accessibility of the information we're developing now in this structured and topic-based world? How do we increase the effectiveness of our delivery to customers? In optimization, we certainly can look at improving productivity for the development teams. And I'll mention some of the new DITA 1.2 mechanisms that I think do increase the flexibility of the model and help internal teams solve perhaps problems that arose because they were early adopters. And we're looking at that message. But the real message I'm interested in is customer quality and how we can make a difference to customers. It isn't enough for us to say, I think, that we've put all this effort into productivity, into reducing costs, reducing time perhaps to delivery, and the customers didn't notice a change. Nothing happened on the customer side. I think that if we stay right there, we're really losing the benefits behind a redesign of our information. So I want to talk about that this morning. I also want to talk about the really interesting move that seems to be happening in the community, and that is to encourage our sister organizations to adopt structured topic-based authoring and to give them access to a common content repository, XML-based content management, so that other organizations in our groups, in our corporations, are beginning to see the benefits of enterprise authoring. And we also, at the same time, we need to look at what technologies are coming along and what we're learning from the innovations coming out of the DITA Technical Committee and OASIS. So what we can do to help make XML authoring, structured authoring, topic-based authoring simpler and easier for people to do when they're not professional communicators. So those are a couple of themes I think we really want to look at today. First of all, we want to talk about content optimization, and my character here says, how do we deliver content with a missing space more effectively? And a couple of issues that I want to focus on. One is that customers are asking us in many cases for new ways of reaching content, and they're going through searches, Bing and Google and Yahoo, or they're using the internal search engines that our companies provide to get to the answers to their questions, to individual topics of information. So how do we get from the topics we're creating, often in either a file system or in a content management system that's a working environment? How do we get from there to the topics that we have that we can present on our website? How do we optimize that content? Second kind of question, why can't we really deliver dynamic rather than static content? Can we update information that has errors in it immediately without having to wait for another release of the product? Can we update a topic that needs to be written better or provide better information for the users? Can we do that in a way that lets the users know what's going on if they're interested in that topic? Or how can we let the users go to a website and assemble the content that they need in a dynamic way? Third issue, what do we do about social media? What can we do to make that part of our program? I know, many organizations are starting to look at that. Well, how can we do this much more effectively, perhaps, than we've done today? What can we learn from groups that are going on this path? What about the mobile devices? How do we get information directly into people's hands? What technologies are we seeing that are going to make that increasingly effective and possible to do? Is there a place for video and interactive images? Can we move into other media besides print, besides words, besides text? And finally, what can the analytics that are available to us through online delivery of information help us to better understand what our customers really need from us? So these are some of the questions that I think we can address today. And here are the themes I think that I'll pursue in terms of adding value for customers. We want to move. When I look at especially early adopters of the DITA standard, what we find is a real, I think, real and correct focus on productivity gains. People are looking for reduced authoring time or for the reuse of information across multiple related products. I had a report recently from one of the DITA early adopters who's in their 5th year now of their implementation, and they've reported that when the company introduces a new product into a product line, that they can produce the instructional text, the information operations and maintenance in manuals in 5% of the time it used to take them. 5%. They've reduced the development time by 95% because of the strategy they used to create common and reusable content really effectively. And yet, they've achieved that kind of productivity gain, but the customer hasn't seen any difference. The customer says, well, kind of looks like it did before. How can we make that change? We want to also look at the position of our content development activities to our senior management. How can we ensure that the information that we're developing for customers is regarded as an asset to the company, both in the pre-sales process and in the very big, very important post-sales environment? How can we make sure that there's an appreciation of the content that we're creating and really making that most effectively available to people? And looks like by the picture, Vince is taking over from some of the words here. But how do we reach out to the facilities we now have for presenting dynamic content and making sure that we're updating information and providing enhanced content as fast as possible? How do we, use customer studies and web analytics to better understand our customers? What new technologies are emerging that we can use to optimize content delivery? How do we use social media in our conversations? And how do we really respond to what I believe is a significantly changing customer demographic, and one that's going to get even more challenging, I think, very, very quickly as younger customers come into this picture. So our first, my first thought about this is it's really about the content. A lot of the discussion of content management and the DITA standard, for a lot of people, especially the many product vendors, product developers, and many of the early adopters, the focus has been on technology tools. Can we get a new tool, and will that change things? In fact, we think that's actually created some problems for organizations who regard this as simply a tools change, and rather than a change in a whole strategy. Moving to DITA originally meant focusing on productivity, and often was seen as a cost reduction effort, and has been a cost reduction effort. But if the customers never notice that anything has changed, have we really changed? Have we really made a valuable change in our organizations? And there's so much potential for doing that. So I think this year, next year, into the next several years, innovation in this area has to focus on content quality. The content's the key. It's really about the content, and we've got to make real inroads into making that content more effective, making it more accessible and usable, and regarding content as a corporate asset rather than a cost. Every time I hear these comments from companies where senior management says, or middle management, probably more so, says, well, content, creation of information is simply a drain. It's an operations of activity we're not interested in. We don't care much about supporting it very well. We can, move it. We can move it to lower cost people as easily as possible. It's just an annoyance more than anything else. We've really got to change that point of view, and I think there's good evidence of companies and organizations working effectively who do change that point of view. Content as a post or pre and a post-sale asset. I love this little illustration. Call our customer support center. There's the phone number. Or go online, log on, submit a service request, or find the information. Actually, better, find the information that you need directly. Early projects and current projects have been demonstrating that excellent customer-focused content reduces the cost of post-sale support. We can see evidence that at presentations in the September 2011 Best Practices Conference from companies that showed explicitly reductions in service calls, reductions in requests for support, shorter service calls, fewer service calls that meant reading the manual to the customer because customers were getting better information from places like the web portals. I want to point to the work of Michael Hammer, which I've been quoting for years, from not only his book Reengineering the Corporation, which was a major business innovation text in the mid-1990s, to his articles on the business advantages of having superior post-sales support and how that makes such a significant difference in what our in the cost to our company and to the happiness satisfaction of our customers. I might point to somebody like, if I talk about pre-sale support, might point to a company like Kohler Plumbing. I'm sure many of you have dealt with their products, that find the technical content on their websites essential to pre-sale support, because customers go out and look at that information as a way of making a decision about what product to buy. And we find that there's general information that suggests that many customers buy products because they get information online, not because they are talking to a salesperson at all, or having any direct engagement with the company they're buying from. So pre-sales and post-sales information, much of it technical information. Customers want to go beyond the brochure to something that's really telling them, what does this product actually do? Can I find out something about it? Let's go look at the documentation, see what that looks like. Dynamic content, keeping information accurate and up to date. It's so frustrating to customers to go to a PDF that was written 3 years ago or last year, and the information that has been changed since because errors and omissions have been found is still out of date. We can do better than that. We can write processing scripts as we do in our organization that allow our customers, some of you, to push content from your component content management system to from the working repository directly, seamlessly to the topic-based web delivery of that information. If some of you haven't already found our Comtech Services brand new website, which we inaugurated last week, you might go and just to see how it works, because it's a website that has its underpinnings are DITA. It's all DITA content in a component content management system, and it is dynamically produced by scripts that push the content to the appropriate place on the web page. And it's full of topics. It's full of lots of information assets that we think people can use to learn about various parts of the management of their organizations. So we really want a seamless integration to be available to us between content creation and its delivery, so that we, as writers, we can really quickly update information. We can correct errors in information. We can ensure that the information is single source, so that it's not a different set of information on a website than it is in the system in which we're creating the information and we've completed it and had it approved. We want to be able to do that, and to do that easily. And all of those methods are possible for us. Of course, in many organizations, it means dealing with a group that controls the website. Some of that can be pretty frustrating, but at the same time, we know that these capabilities are there for us, and we need to keep pushing that capability within our organizations. Some of this has been done for some time, not necessarily always new, but the ability to, particularly to link web-based content management systems or web-based delivery to our component working environments is really an important thing that we've got to be doing. Customer studies. Here's I guess the story I've been telling for a long time. When I started this organization in the late 1970s, the very, very first project we had to create documentation for software, and at that time, almost nobody was using software that wasn't a computer professional. We were asked by my colleague, who was the CEO of a medical software company, to come in and find better ways to communicate to these brand new users of computers in the hospital administration, and then the hospital laboratories, and then the hospital medical professionals. Understand how we could help them learn to use a fairly complicated computer system effectively. And the very first thing I said we needed to do was to spend time with them to understand what their jobs were. And we spent several months in hospitals between the training group and me learning about the customers. And out of that, I said back to that organization, and we successfully implemented, by the way, in 1980, a topic-based structured authoring system based upon paper. But I said, we've got to stop writing documentation, start working for the customers. Because documentation has often been an account of how a product was developed, what features the product contains, and often doesn't speak at all to the customers, to what they're trying to do. That's a message that I've delivered for many years, and it's still a critical message, that we're not, customers are not about the product, but they're about their work. We need, as information developers, we have a need and a capacity to become experts on the requirements for customers after the sale, the post-sale support. What are they trying to do with our product? How are they trying to use it? What are they trying to learn? We can work with our sister organizations, like the training organization, the telephone support, or service organization, field engineering in many cases, user experience teams, even the sales organization, people who are also engaged in understanding the customer, gathering information about the customer needs. And we can then, I think, correctly, effectively focus on customer scenarios, the stories of how they work in their workplaces, and what information they need to support that work, and then find the right solutions that we can talk about either in text or graphics or video or social media, solutions that help them solve their problems rather than simply descriptions of features and functions and buttons on the screen. Things that are really in the background as reference information rather than in the foreground of what customers are really looking for. And certainly that's a message that we deliver in our minimalism workshop. That seems always to be at the lead of popularity. So I'm also going to now go on from that customer study to information we can gather through web analytics as a way of understanding information. So we'd like to, Vincent, introduce our first poll question. And that is, are you using web analytics today to help better understand your customers' information use and their information needs? So quickly select one. We'll give you a minute or so. About 3/4 of you have voted so far. I'll leave it open another 30 seconds because this is really interesting. Okay, there I think we're okay, Vince. Why don't we close the poll and show the results? Here we are. This is interesting. A full half of you said, no, you're not using this information. Now, that may be, of course, because you're not putting information onto the web and you don't have anything to analyze. It also may be very difficult to analyze what people are doing with PDF. But there are, however, 30%, almost 30% of you who are saying, yes, we're doing this. And, we'd be really quite interested to hear from you. about what you're learning. What differences is it making to your understanding of your customers? So this is really interesting result. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go back to our slide and talk about web analytics. These are the measurements, right? The metrics that record things like the number of hits onto online content, the number of seconds or minutes that a customer spends on a page. Whoops. Go back one. There we go. And that information can really help us understand, certainly, what people are looking at, or what they never look at. Now, a problem with what they're never looking at might mean that it's not titled correctly, or it doesn't have the right short description, or it can't be found. And then we can analyze that to really understand better. We can use things like Google AdWords or the programs like TagWords to find out what people are using to search. I know an organization that recently created a master list of all of the verbs that customers use, and in order of frequency of use, to to give the writers insight into how they should be using verbs to identify their task content. What if you say, starting the motor, is starting a good word? Is that a word that people are using to analyze? We also know from studies that we can look at and understand what topics customers prefer. In one information development group that reported at the September Best Practices Conference, they did a little experiment. They put the same content for a particular product up on the web in PDF form and in topic-based presentation. They knew, for example, that the customer preference, in a customer preference poll, customers had said that they preferred PDFs. What they found when they studied how customers use the content was a preference for topics of 26.3 to 1. And this was millions of hits, 3.5 million hits to 150,000 hits. An overwhelming move to topics rather than the PDFs, when the information, especially when the information was about 85% identical. Some of the things in the PDFs don't make content for the customers, the preface or something that you've added that no one ever reads. That's just an outstanding piece of information. Even among customers who said they preferred PDFs, they used the topics. Because, customers don't come to our websites knowing, what they're going to get from us. So enhanced content. These organizations went in and said, if customers are using these topics or they're asking questions of support that we think are covered, what's wrong with the topic? How do we enhance it? So we see a move to enhanced content, and that's helping drive consumers to that online information. And especially when we can talk about it in the social media. Okay, so now I'm going to move into some of the new technologies that we're offering, and I want to ask you about those technologies. We've had to limit our voting, so would you just click on something that you've heard about? Doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything with it, but you've heard about it. And again, I'll leave you about a minute to figure out what you want to answer. And again, we're getting some really interesting results. Seems like HTML5 CSS3 combination has been at least on the radar for many of you. And we've got about 82% voting. Vince, why don't we close the poll and show the results? There we go. Wow, look at that. 86% of you are saying you've heard of HTML5 and CSS3, and I would talk about that in just a second. Another 50%, know about QR codes. You don't know about Schematron, which is interesting because that's becoming a bigger part of XML authoring. Interactive books have been in the news lately, especially with Apple's move into the iBooks for our children in the school system. And of course, you've heard about dynamic delivery. Okay, back to our slide. And I had a few other things on my list. Certainly the interactive media and the iBooks, iBooks and eBooks. Our eBooks are, look a little bit more like just, the PDF on the screen. But iBooks or interactive books are really becoming very interesting, where we can where they're changing the educational patterns that we're offering to children, and I think that those children are going to expect those same educational opportunities and learning opportunities as adults. That you can look at an animation. You can see a video in the midst of other informational text. It's really pretty fascinating. There's one on the Apple website that you can download that is a biology textbook, high school level biology textbook with the author. They're speaking about the importance of understanding biology. HTML5, a way to standardize the output for all those different browsers and different websites. Create one output that's going to work everywhere. Thank goodness. Right now it's really complicated sometimes to get all this stuff working, and especially with video when we have conflicting standards or conflicting proprietary mechanisms that can't be used on every kind of system. CSS3, the ability to write a single style sheet that allows us to output to PDF or to HTML or to other kinds of output that we want to deliver, simplifying the style sheet development. QR codes, we're finding that in technical information, this is presenting us with an opportunity to let people go from a quick start guide or a piece that they get in the box, a paper piece, and move them directly into the online content. You say, here it is. Here the real information you need. I'm thinking about how nice would that be if I'd gotten that QR code in the really bad manual that came with my refrigerator when we were trying to figure out how to change a light bulb. And it would have been nice to, be led to the website to see a video on that, to work with that information more directly, or to change the lights on my AeroGrow garden, where I'm growing tomatoes in the house under a grow light right now. Also, some of the things I talked about earlier, the link between content management system and web content management delivery systems. That's been a real challenge over the last 10 or 12 years, where people have said to us, why aren't these the same thing? Why do we have to have different systems? Well, it's kind of stayed that way, but we can now push the content and deliver it, or pull the content and deliver it effectively. Mobile devices, our customers are asking for information at the point of use. They're on their cell phones, they're on their iPads, they're on their tablet PCs. We even know in one story where the people maintaining electric lift trucks in a warehouse preferred to take their laptops out to the lift truck and diagnose what was wrong, and then order the parts and try to figure out how to install the new part. Really maintain their information. Now, here's the one that nobody knew about, because that's a new technology that we're seeing now being added to some of the XML authoring systems. Schematron, which allows us as information architects to give assistance to our authors so that they're correctly authoring information. We might, for example, use a Schematron script to remind people that we really need to have them start a task title with a verb. And we can do it in a smart enough way that if they don't write a verb, it's going to present an error message. So this is a degree of increased technology to ensure that our information is well developed and consistent, especially when that information is now being developed by more and more people in our organizations. So these are exciting new technologies. I invite you to come to the April Content Management Strategies Conference in La Jolla, Southern California, and join us for the Emerging Technologies track, a new way, of communicating about what these and other new technologies are and how they're going to work and what you can do with them. So we're very excited about that new, education into emerging technologies. Okay, I got to watch my time here. Let's see. Next one, of course, is social media, and I probably don't need to tell you a lot about this. I suspect you already know. But the questions, you ask yourself is, is my corporation using social media to communicate with customers, and why am I not doing that with my customers for my information? Does marketing have a Facebook page or a LinkedIn site? Do you have a Facebook page or LinkedIn site for your technical information? Instant messages or Twitter, is there a way to send people the right piece of content that they need? Is your marketing organization listening to what your customers are saying online about your company? Can you find out what they're saying online about the information that comes with that, with your product? And then, for a particular reference, have you seen the Cisco Doc Wiki on Facebook or a Facebook link to it that invites customers to enter comments, to participate in the development of better technical information? These are really, exciting developments and some things that we really need to be looking at. Finally, customers are changing. Don't get left behind. I love this little picture. Here's our user of the future. The iPad, I think many of you who have little children already know this, is the favorite toy of preschoolers. Fairly expensive toy, but you can't keep them out of it. As soon as they see you doing something, they immediately learn how to do this. Well, this is our user of the pretty near future. People who watch YouTube videos rather than read instructions. My sister's a professor of graphic design, and I asked her several years ago, are you still teaching courses like Photoshop as part of the curriculum for your graphic design majors? And she said, oh, no. She said they all go and watch YouTube or they, to learn how to use these things. We don't teach courses in that anymore. We know that a recent study, I think in the last 2 weeks, has said that teenagers prefer to exchange information through texting rather than talking to people on their phones. They're incredibly comfortable with mobile apps and social media, and that becomes a centerpiece in their way of communicating. Now, what's going to happen when they become the users of our products? If they aren't already. People want to carry their information resources around in their hands or in their pockets. And we've got to be prepared to support that, to really move in that direction. So I think there are many, many opportunities of becoming available or becoming really challenges to us to present information in new ways and not get left behind. But if we still think we can produce 3,000-page manuals and anybody's reading it, we better think again. Okay, major message. So here's my question now. Have you revamped or enhanced your content in response to a new understanding of customer needs. So there's our next poll. And let's see what we find about. I notice that the first people who put their answers in are the ones who are choosing number 3. Well, this is coming out in a really interesting way. Give you another few seconds if you haven't answered already. Okay, I think we're close to about 80% voting. So, Vincent, would you please close the poll and show us the results? Now, I keep getting reminded of the political poll results that are out there with the campaign, the GOP campaigning. So this is actually a really good story. We've got 70% of you saying that you have either significantly revamped content in response to customer needs, or you are doing that, enhancing customers that find that enhancing the content that the customers are finding most valuable. That's fabulous. And then notice that the other 47% of you need to catch up. You know, you need to. Apparently, people have answered more than one place here, but those of you who aren't doing this yet, looks like you're getting behind. So, understanding that customer, really knowing how to optimize the content for the customer. You know, this new direction I think that we want to stress in this presentation. You know, is really significant, and please don't get left behind. Okay, let's go on. Because now I want to move into my next theme, my second theme, and at least give a small amount of time to this one, because I think it's becoming increasingly important, and that is the expansion of structured authoring, XML, automated publishing, topic-based development out to the rest of the organization. And my, here are the questions I'm asking. Are we using DITA 1.2 for training? DITA 1.2 has been out for, more than a year now. It has the learning and training specializations. One of my senior staff members has just been at the e-learning conference presenting about DITA this week to the training world and getting a really, really interesting response. A lot of it from training organizations that said they didn't even know if their information developers were using DITA, but they want to do this themselves. That's fascinating. Or this one, your service people write content. I can guarantee that if you don't know it, you probably should. Can you work together with them? We have organizations where the service group is now adopting DITA so that they can share information with information development and both directions, and also create their information much more easily and get out of the business of formatting. What about the organization that produces parts catalogs or product catalogs? We have one of our customers has been able to produce in 6 minutes a parts catalog for their dealer sales organization and their dealers produced in 6 minutes what it used to take them 6 months to produce as a graphic design extravaganza. Now it's produced entirely through DITA text, pictures of the products, and then purchasing and supply data coming directly from their corporate purchasing database. 6 minutes from 6 months to 6 minutes is a pretty significant change. What about the HR department. We're working right now with an HR organization. And I never realized how complex their information is. Something that seems as simple as an employee catalog has multiple versions with enormous opportunities for information reuse. And we're finding that we're using the DITA 1.2 mechanism called the key ref to create a single source of this information, being able to automate all the various versions of the information depending upon the location and the type of employee, and really move that information quickly, into the hands of employees. And again, a process that used to take 6 months of sort of painful move into kind of a graphics presentation by the marketing communications folks on behalf of HR is becoming we can produce this in seconds when our content is all in a single sourced XML DITA. What about the legal department, or new business proposals, or contract information that can be reused? Many years ago, even working with Microsoft Word at the time, we were able to help British Telecom create new business proposals out of pieces, topics that needed to come together and be used to build a presentation. All of that today could be done in XML and without the formatting issues, so that it always looks correct and it always looks the same. And then finally, what about the huge reports the SMEs write? I worked for about a year and a half with the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and on a complete redesign of their intranet communication among various departments. And learned in the course of that the chief economists were assembling what their country reports and their yearly reports on the financial status of countries. They were assembling this by taking all of these different reports and actually scanning them to create pieces that could be assembled by the secretaries into this massive report. It was the most insane and expensive and slow and awkward process. And started talking to them about DITA and what they could do, and we saw, kind of a massive move in this direction, to create XML-based reusable content. It was very exciting to see that. So the question I think you should be asking is, what are the other organizations in our corporation that could benefit from our learning experience already? What are the sister organizations that produce, first of all, customer-facing content? Can you share information assets? Can you work together effectively? Then going beyond that, what organizations are facing pain points where the information is really difficult to produce, or it's frequently out of date? How can we fix that? Have you thought about forming a content council? I'll talk about that more in just a second, to bring together all the content producers to share strategies to create a collaborative work environment. Can we volunteer, as we heard from one of our long-term CIDM members a couple of years ago? Could he volunteer? Did he volunteer his organization to work with other organizations to help train them, to get them started, to really learn more about how to create information effectively? Can you create a presentation that, as DCL and Comtech are trying to do, that we can make to corporate leaders about the potential business advantages and benefits? Right now I'm planning a presentation at the April conference with one of my colleagues who was our champion of our early adopter DITA implementation as the part of senior management and director of marketing communications, and a very influential business leader in that corporation. We're putting a presentation together about how to communicate with the C-level executives about the value of better information development and better information quality going to customers. And in that, all become a DITA evangelist yourself within the enterprise. So here's a question I have, and I'm quite curious to find out. Here's our next poll about what groups in your organization are using DITA today. Is anybody else doing this? And this is really, really interesting because I've got a really slow vote coming in. I think that means that a lot of people are voting 0. And we didn't give you 0 as an option. Nobody but us. Or not even us, because we're just getting started. So I think we're going to have, Vincent, a lot fewer participants in this one because I think probably it's an only us response. So give everybody a few more seconds.
As someone points out, there is none of the above option.
I know.
We ran out of options.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we ran out of options in the tool. Okay, so let's cut this one off and show what the poll results are. And very interesting. A little bit what I expected, that there's a quarter of a half of you, which means about 12% are seeing DITA being used in perhaps the service organization, customer support, or in training. And I would, certainly would expect that to be one of the first places. A smaller margin sees people from engineering or product development perhaps using DITA. We see that, for example, in the semiconductor industry, where we can start in XML and stay in XML, and a tiny percentage of maybe sales, catalogs, or data sheets, I suspect, rather than marketing communications. So this is an area we work in a lot, and we're finding enormous opportunities. And then look at the zeros, human resources and legals and contracts. Those are places that are really feeling pain and looking for help. So there's great opportunity out there. Okay, so let's close the poll, move back to the slide. I think I've only got one more slide. And that is about this idea of a content council. And I'll leave you with this today and suggest that this might be a great area where you could get started. And that is to, there we go, bring together representatives from groups that develop customer-facing content. Make sure that you have a clear senior management support and a mandate to succeed. Otherwise, people will find that they're too busy to take part. But with a senior management mandate and an appointment of people to a committee like this with real responsibility and a definite job to do, to say, can we simplify, can we reuse, can we make sure that we're messaging in the same way. The goal of your content council should be to reduce duplication of content, which is often the first and the simplest thing to do, and then promote the single sourcing, promote a whole strategy. So we've had really interesting articles and presentations in the past about the active content councils in organizations as diverse as John Deere, tractor maker, and IBM, which makes everything except tractors. And these are really successful efforts supported by senior management, getting everybody together to work effectively. So that's my ending point. And our last poll is, very quickly, have you established a content council? Is that something you've thought of or you're doing? And this one we did give you a no. Okay, let's close the poll and show the results. Oops. There we go. 14 of you said yes. Wow, I'd really like to hear about how you're doing. But a big portion, 72% no, and then this really interesting little group, 14% of you said yes, we're doing this. This is something that we think is going to be valuable. And I hope you've read our articles in the Best Practices News of the Center for Information Development Management about how to establish a content council. Okay, there we go. Let's go back to the slides and just bring you to the end of this. Just to leave you with one note, ComSec and DCL can help in many ways. This presentation, by the way, of the DITA roadmap is on our website, and it's a poster, and it's a set of these cartoon images which can help to tell a story. And we have the content management strategies DITA North America coming up, and a lot of these ideas are going to be extended by people speaking at the conference from all kinds of organizations, and organizations that can also be helpful or offer products that you might find valuable. And just to list a couple of the upcoming events. Before we close, there you go. We have a couple of workshops that are coming up actually this next week. And we're also looking, by the way, for companies who would sponsor DITA boot camps or other workshops. If their location, again, you can find out about that sponsorship opportunity. We're certainly looking for, especially an East Coast location for DITA boot camp in the Massachusetts Bay Area. The conference is coming up both in April, and then Best Practices Conference of the CIDM in September. We're starting our planning for that. And we have also another webinar coming up next week called Taking the Pain Out of SME Review Process, and looking at the opportunities for things like light editors, to allow people in the enterprise to more effectively author material that it will be DITA and XML compliant without looking like it's DITA and XML structure underneath. So there you go, and you can certainly contact myself or Linda Maroney from Data Conversion Labs, who's been listening quietly in the background. Vince, do we have any opportunity for a few questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes if you want to take them.
Yeah, go ahead and let's see.
If anyone's got any questions, you can use the question box in GoToWebinar to submit them.
Yeah, I have somebody who says we're working to implement DITA for training content, and we're developing, by the way, that probably for this summer, we're going to be developing a workshop for DITA learning and training content, and I think that's going to be a really exciting development. We're also working on a new workshop for translation management using DITA. We do have somebody else who said, this is really interesting, I selected field engineering and product development, but it's really engineering design. Tech Hubs is getting started, and that sounds extremely promising. I think that's very, very positive result, and I think that can be really quite interesting. And now somebody said that their various pubs councils have been suspended because no one has time to participate. Well, I mean, that's a real reason to say we really need to have executive sponsorship. If you look at the IBM experience, it's not an option to do that. It's really not an option, and I think you've got to get that kind of support behind you. And I think we've got one other question. It's about the web analytics, and that is, how do you tell a lot from this? And I think you have to start out by that base information, where how long is somebody spending on a page? Are they looking at this information at all? Is it fast because it's are they quickly on a page because they found the answer more quickly? You have to start with the web analytics and then start to pursue to really understand what they need. It's not going to be the end result for what you're doing. One other, somebody said, what about schematron? We know of 2 XML editors today that I know about. Now, this doesn't mean that's the only one. Oxygen and Arbortext. Both are supporting schematron as part of the product. And you can learn to set up a schematron scripting to help manage people's writing efforts. Really doing that in an effective way, I think. Then one of our last is about DITA specialization. One organization said, what do you recommend about DITA specifications? And said they're trying to do this wisely, but some folks balk, that we're no longer compliant if we add specializations. Well, first of all, there is a methodology in the DITA specification to create DITA compliant specialization. And you've got to, first of all, you've got to do that. What you don't do is you go and change the DITA DTDs. That's wrong. It's not the way that we've provided the mechanism for specialization. So maybe this is a learning problem. If you do specializations correctly, it is DITA compliant. It is DITA compliant. But if you do specializations incorrectly, if you start changing the underlying DITA structures, that's not specialization. That's customization. And you can go down a slippery path. I agree. That's not a thing to do. So if somebody needs more help with that, give me a note, and maybe I can get you on a phone call to talk about what specialization, how it's supposed to work. In fact, there's a couple of tools out there that help people do specialization. I don't know how effective they are. That's something we haven't used, but it might be part of the answer to the question. Okay, Vince, I think we are, covered a lot of ground with the.
Yeah, we're also way over our time.
Most everybody stayed.
Yep.
So I want to thank everybody for staying with us and for taking part in, many of you, in all 3 of these presentations. And hopefully the people who haven't been able to join the talk will go in and get the recording.
Yep. Thank you very much, Joanne.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. This has been great.
Have a good day.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.